Yo, what's up, guys? It's Tat, and Behavior just put out some statistical data for Dead by Daylight's kill rate for all the different killers. Um, Something important to say is you should not take really anything out of this. This is just me kind of looking at things, talking about it a little bit. Don't look at this data and say it's fact. Uh, there's certain killers that are at the top, certain killers that are at the bottom. That just it doesn't make any sense because yeah, statistically speaking, they might be good. Practically speaking, though, not so much. Plus, there's billions of factors that go into a game of Dead by Daylight that can dictate the outcome. So you shouldn't really take anything away from this other than just it's interesting to look at. So all MMR kill rate. This doesn't surprise me actually too much for all MMR. Nurse being at the bottom along with Trickster, that makes complete sense. And the reason why is because Nurse has a very steep learning curve. And so a casual player picks up Nurse, they try playing her, they play for like 2 games and they give up because they're losing constantly. She's hard to play. Now, she's not as hard as some people say she is, but she's hard enough that the average player doesn't really want to have to put in the time. As well as Trickster. Trickster is a weird killer because he is not particularly powerful in most situations, but in the few situations where he is, he's literally uncounterable and will just kill you in like 2 seconds. But all the way at the top, Pinhead, that makes sense because the whole player base trying to solve the box with Chain Hunt, yeah, that makes sense. Onryo actually does make sense, and a lot of people are probably losing their shit about this, but it does make sense to me, and that's because when you're new to the game or when you're new to the Onryo, even just a casual player, you're probably touching TVs, right? Skillful players, like really high MMR players, whatever, people who have lots of experience in the game, they know there's no reason to ever touch a TV. It's literally just going to waste your time, put you at risk of being moried, and it does effectively nothing to stop the killer. So people are turning off TVs, getting condemned stacks, and then she's able to start killing people. That's my assumption. That's what makes the most sense to me. And Wesker, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why Wesker's up there. I'm gonna assume it's because he's new and people are having a hard time adjusting to him. That's typically how things go. It's like the first month or so when a killer releases, the kill rate's super high, and then they settle down over time because people learn how to kind of exploit their weaknesses. What's more interesting though is the top 5% MMR, which you would think, oh, it would be like the community's standard tier list, right? But no, it's not even close. And this is why you should never use only data to balance the game, specifically Dead by Daylight. Now, you could use data as a huge asset in other games like Rainbow Six Siege, Overwatch, etc., because it's a balanced game. It's one side versus the other. It's a clear win. Like you get it, right? Dead by Daylight, there's so many reasons why a player could win a match, right? There's so many perks, add-ons, maps, offerings. It's a lot to kind of just take in. And this is weird. Now, I will say that Behavior has actually seemingly not been using data as strongly as they used to. They used to dick ride data, right? That's what I would use, the term dick ride data, where they would just say, well, we're not changing this because it's performing fine, They don't seem to do that anymore. Like the last 2 years, they've been doing a really good job of actually like listening to the community and just making changes based on community feedback rather than that data cock. But here, this looks weird to me, and it probably looks a little weird to you. So Wesker again is apparently allegedly the strongest killer in the game. That's obviously not true, but statistically speaking, sure, whatever. Plague being the second. second strongest killer in the game. Not true, but she is very strong. And the reason why is because she completely hard counters the healing meta, right? And she has an insanely strong ability in the form of Corrupt Purge. So she can snowball survivors. She can win a match like that, right? So it makes sense that she's high up. Now, she shouldn't be this high up, but she's good. She's a good killer. In Dredge as well, I gotta just I don't get it how Dredge like is it his teleport? Surely it's not his chase power because that's really easy to like actually get away from because he moves so slow and you know when he's doing it unlike the artist. You know, I don't get it. There's got to be something that we're not seeing. But then we have the standard kind of like, oh yeah, this is like where you start going for the top tier killers, right? So you have Nurse, Blight, Spirit, Pinhead. Um, and there's two in there that don't really belong. Oni, you can just counter his power completely by just pre-dropping pallets. If a survivor doesn't get hit the whole game, he doesn't have power. I think a killer with that big of a risk can't be top tier, right? And the Onryo, yeah, I don't know. Are they all using the Eerie videotape? Are they moonwalking people? That's like the only like rational conclusion I can come to is every Onryo in the top 5% of MMR is using like the two best add-ons and is moonwalking people to death like Old Legion. That's all I can really come to as a conclusion there to kind of interpret this. Pig, no, but RBTs do kill people, so whatever. Wraith is apparently a pretty decent killer. Cool, I guess. Twins as well. Twins is a very, very strong killer, but I think that they honestly could be a lot higher. And in this case, it kind of makes sense, you know. Not every single person's like Pixel Bush when they're playing Twins, so it is what it is. Myers, Tombstone piece is my excuse for why he's so high. It's Tombstone. He's able to just mori people in front of him without having to hook them a single time. Hag, yeah, I don't know. See, this is where the list, like the rationale, just falls apart, and you have to kind of just grasp at straws to explain certain things. Legion, okay, I might be, you know, putting in my part for this, but I swear Legion's not this good, right? And yeah, you go further down the list, you see kills like Artist, um, Deathslinger, Leatherface. Yeah, it's gets really, really messy. But here's actually some pretty interesting things. Is you can actually see the exact percentage, and there's a lot to digest here. Wraith is, you know, 60%, Twins 60%, just below. Trickster 58%, Trappers 56, 61, blah 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 blah. What I find interesting, what I'm going to briefly talk about, is Legion being essentially a near perfect 60-60. Because Legion's kind of always been right smack in the middle. Like every time they've released kill rate, pick rate, you know, whatever, Legion always just ends up being right in the middle. Like they're not bad, they're not good, they're just extremely average. And even after their rework, it seems to be the case. Is Legion just kind of has just stayed the same. They're just like, yeah, we're Legion, we're, you know, the most average killer ever. So yeah, that's interesting. And then Artist, Artist Blight, Bubba. This makes some sense to me. I think all MR is doing a little bit of carrying here, but I'm surprised to see Cannibal not breaking 60%. in top 5. And the reason why is because there are some really good Leatherface players out there. Now, admittedly, you could probably make the excuse that, well, all those super skillful players aren't in, a public match. They're doing it in custom games, and that makes sense. But I feel like even if you did include them, it probably wouldn't go up a whole lot. So it's just weird to me that Leatherface is not actually breaking 60%. So statistically speaking, you know, he's like the third worst killer in the game, which isn't true. So this is why you should basically never take anything away from data in that they release for Dead by Daylight, just because it's extremely inaccurate. It's fun to look at, it's fun to talk about, but it really doesn't mean anything. It's just essentially a bunch of numbers with icons attached to them. But I figured it would be interesting to at least talk about it briefly here with you guys and just go over it, give you my brief thoughts on some things. And yeah, just remember, behavior doesn't use only data. There's a few creators out there who claim they do. It's not true. They even say it themselves in this post. Yeah, many factors are taken into account. They don't just dick ride data. They probably used to. In fact, I would say they used to, but they don't do that anymore. They've wised their asses up, and they've been making really good changes the last 2 years. So yeah, that's all I really gotta say. This is just really interesting to read, to see, and I hope it was interesting for you to watch.